Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. Tonight, I invite you to join me in an imaginary walk through Charmouth, a village we all know and love, yet one that has quietly transformed in countless ways since the last war. We'll begin our journey at the corner of the Lower Sea Lane and the street near the pharmacy and wander together past familiar landmarks, some now lost to time, as we head towards the bridge over the River Char. From there, we'll loop back along the opposite side of the street up to the top, then cross again and stroll back to where we began. The final stretch will take us all the way down Lower Sea Lane to the sea, ending with images of the outskirts. Throughout our journey, we'll be guided by a selection of photographs, many drawn from the rich archives of the Charmouth History Society, which is now celebrating 25 years of preserving our heritage. I'm especially grateful to the late Keith Wiscombe, one of the Society's founding members, whose personal collection has been invaluable, and to Jeff and Robert Davis for allowing me to share glimpses of their family albums with you all. The talk will unfold in two parts, with a break midway for refreshments and conversation. I've also compiled a large format presentation book featuring a number of tonight's slides, available to purchase for £20, proceeds to which go to support the History Society. And I hope to follow it with a smaller companion book in September, priced at £7.99, similar to the one I did on Charmouth 100 years ago. To begin, I'll introduce an Ordnance Survey map of Charmouth from 1960. This offers a striking comparison with the earlier 1926 edition, highlighting the significant expansion of housing between the street and the coast over that period. Supporting this visual, population figures reflect the growth from just 445 residents in 1921, rising to 890 by 1951 and reaching 1,338 by 2021. Aerial photographs follow, offering a bird's eye view of the village's development and illustrating how the built environment evolved alongside the growing community. This photograph offers a glimpse into a very different Charmouth back in 1955. The street was still lined with a remarkable number of hotels, boarding houses and public houses, many of which have since disappeared or found new lives as private dwellings. In this single image alone, we can spot the Coach and Horses, the New Inn, the Court and Charmouth House, all once thriving establishments, now repurposed as accommodation. Running parallel to the street is a remarkable 14th century stone wall, still standing and still marking the depth of the original plots, half-acre burgages, laid out when Charmouth was first planned as a medieval borough around 1300. The Cardens once stretched back from their properties to the wall, forming long, narrow strips of land typical of borough planning in that era. In the mid-1950s, large areas of the village were still undeveloped. At that time, the Women's Institute had its own home in what is now the Village Hall, while the building we now know as the Community Hall was referred to simply as the Church Hall. Another aerial view from 1955 offers a wider perspective, capturing more of the street and Axminster Road. At the centre stands Charmouth House, then operating as a hotel, complete with a swimming pool set within its spacious grounds. The 1954 official guide to Charmouth informed its readers that it was becoming increasingly popular as a seaside village set among some of the loveliest scenery in Dorset. It consists chiefly of houses lining one very steep street down the valley of the Char to the sea. Remarkably fine views are afforded from the many shapely hills that rise behind the village. There are innumerable beautiful walks, and the district abounds with fossils, ammonites and precious stones. Although only a village still, but Charmouth has not been the victim of modern improvement. It offers excellent accommodation to its many visitors, and there are shops of every kind. Charmouth, after the last war, had a greater variety of business than it has today. They stretched from the bottom of the street to the top. It could boast of having 5 pubs, 2 butchers, 2 garages, 4 grocers, and even a bank, as well as a number of gift shops. Sadly, most of these were to disappear, especially after the advent of the bypass in 1989. A post-war photograph captures a striking reminder of Charmouth's wartime defences, a stretch of anti-tank emplacements known as Dragon's Teeth, still visible along the shoreline. These concrete obstacles were originally connected by metal poles, forming a formidable barrier against potential invasion. On the left, the Hammondsmead Hotel can be seen amidst this expansive grounds. Built in 1910 by Miss Evans, the hotel became a notable village landmark. In a generous act of stewardship, she later gifted several fields to the village on the condition they would never be built upon. Also visible is the beach car park near the bridge, which at that time was owned by Billy Gear. By 1965, Charmouth had been seeing substantial post-war growth, with Harsey Lane and the 5-acre estate now filled with newly built homes. This marked a significant stage in the village's southward expansion, reflecting both a rising population and evolving housing needs. A 1975 view reveals that several open fields still remained within the village, awaiting future development. At the top of Harsey Lane, the imposing Seahorse House Hotel, constructed in 1810, still stood as a prominent landmark before its eventual demolition. In the foreground sits the original village school with its playing field, seen here prior to its closure and relocation in 1993 at the bottom of Lower Sea Lane. An aerial view from 1989 captures Charmouth in the midst of transformation as construction of the bypass was underway. At the same time, work was progressing on the new sewage pipeline, sections of which are visible within the beach car park. Despite these developments, several fields remain undeveloped, including the plot on Lower Sea Lane that would become the site of the new village school just 4 years later. An evocative 1958 view of Charmouth captures the bustling moment in the village's commercial heart. On the right stands Bragg's store, its forecourt brimming with a colourful display of fresh fruit and vegetables. A heavy lorry is parked nearby, most likely making delivery to replenish the shop's popular produce. Directly opposite was Edward Thompson, the draper, who had opened his doors back in 1932, Harold Smith, the baker, Dunn's, the stationers, and George Restorick, the family butcher. A view looking down the street in 1970. By then, Robinson's, the bakers, had taken over the corner premises once occupied by Thompson's, the drapers. Charmouth Bakery, still operating today behind this very spot, continues a tradition more than a century old, stretching back to the days when the Coles family ran their ovens from the ground floor of Devon's Edge. The original shop shown here was built in 1932 by John Bragg of Lyme Regis. It was thoughtfully constructed around an earlier 18th century carpenter's workshop located on the corner of Lower Sea Lane and the street. Before Bragg's development, the site had been home to Harry Pryor's monumental stonemasons. In its new form, Bragg's went on to serve as a well-loved grocer's shop for many years. A rare photograph captures Bragg's store cloaked in snow in 1985. Next door stands Michael Davis's chemist shop. That same year, Bragg's advertisement in the local guide proudly promoted their reputation for bacon and cooked meats, along with a daily selection of fresh fruit, flowers and vegetables. Anne and Andrew Peach, the much-loved proprietors of Bragg's store, are pictured here behind the counter, framed by shelves brimming with boxed cereals. Their welcoming presence and well-stocked displays made Bragg's a familiar and dependable stop for locals. Charmouth's narrow streets have seen their share of unfortunate encounters with runaway vehicles, but none more dramatic than the incident of 1987 when a grain lorry lost control descending Charmouth Hill. With its brakes having failed, the driver made a desperate attempt to steer the speeding vehicle away from the heart of the village by turning sharply into Lower Sea Lane. The cab clipped the wall of Bragg's grocery store in a glancing blow, but the momentum hurled the trailer onto its side, slamming its broadside into the shop's frontage. The crash caused significant damage and scattered animal feed pellets in every direction. Miraculously, the driver emerged unscathed, and perhaps most fortunate of all, the accident took place just half an hour before local school children were due to pass by, averting what could have been a major tragedy. A dramatic photograph shows the massive lorry resting against the side of Bragg's store in the aftermath of the 1987 crash. The scale of the vehicle against the shop front speaks volumes about the force of the impact. The damage was so extensive that the store had to close for several weeks, with a full rebuild eventually undertaken before it could reopen to serve the village once more. Anne and Andrew Peach are pictured here behind the counter of Bragg's store on their final day in 2006. The shelves behind them stacked high with soft drinks, a familiar sight to many regular customers. This photo captures the end of an era as the couple bid farewell to a shop they had long nurtured at the heart of village life. In 2006, the familiar corner shop entered a new chapter as Ida's Country Corner opened by Val and Jim Hatcher in the former Bragg's store. A heartfelt nod to the Val's late mother, Ida Woodman, of nearby Fishpond, soon led to the shop being renamed Ida's Village Stores. In more recent years, the premises have taken on a new role as the pharmacy, relocated from further along the parade. This charming 1954 photograph captures Beasley's, a well-loved village shop known for its eclectic range of goods, knitwear, wools, jewellery and assorted fancy items. Next door stood the local chemist run by Sidney Herbert, a respected figure in Charmouth not only for his pharmacy but also for his service as a sergeant in the Home Guard and chairman of the parish council. The chemist offered a selection of perfumes, toiletries and Kodak colour film. This 1954 photograph offers another fascinating glimpse into Charmouth's evolving streetscape. It shows the gift shop and beside it the house known as Uphill, built by Billy Gear here for himself. What often surprises modern viewers is the presence just beyond of a Lloyd's Bank branch, a reminder that even small villages once had full-service banks on the high street. That very spot now houses the Bank Cafe, a name that preserves the memory of its financial past. The building on the right began life as the office for Billy Gear's garage. Later it took on a new role as a gift shop run by his wife, offering an eclectic mix of items. Period advertisements highlight its varied stock: gifts, souvenirs, cigarettes, sweets, stationery, film, toys and beach requisites, making it a go-to stop for both locals and holiday makers. Today the same spot serves up quite a different treat, having been transformed into a fish bar. This view, taken in 1985, reveals several notable changes since photographs captured it 3 decades earlier. Bragg's store still occupied the familiar corner position. Mike Davis has since taken over as the village chemist, continuing the line of community care from Sidney Herbert. Beasley's had been renamed Charm, while just along the parade the Lloyd's Bank branch remained open, a now unthinkable sight in many rural high streets. The adjacent gift shop also continued to operate. This captivating 1982 photograph not only captures a lively celebration marking the end of the Falkland War, but also offers a snapshot of a changing Charmouth streetscape. Among the notable transformations, Billy Gear's former residence, Uphill, had by then taken on a new identity as the Cheshire Cat, a fashion boutique known for stocking stylish clothing from leading manufacturers. A 1953 photograph by Herbert Pym offers a vivid glimpse of Charmouth's bustling high street, featuring the parade of shops that included Billy Gear's well-placed garage and workshops. Seated along the strategic A35 Folkestone to Honiton Trunk Road, the garage enjoyed a steady stream of passing trade, an advantage Gear capitalised on with characteristic foresight. At the time, he was perhaps the village's most prominent businessman, not only running the garage but also owning the large car park beside the footbridge near Eastcliff and developing a number of residential properties throughout Charmouth. Just to the right stands a lock-up shop built in 1931 by Bagshaws of Axminster. It would go on to serve for many years as a popular gift shop and today continues its village service and yet another guise as the local fish shop. In the present day view, the site, once occupied by Billy Gear's bustling garage, has been transformed into Queen's Walk, a residential development that marks a significant shift in Charmouth's relationship with its main thoroughfare. William Arthur Gear, born in 1898, chose a path distinct from his family roots in the fish trade, carving out a reputation as one of Charmouth's most enterprising figures. Over the years, he steadily built up a successful automobile business across various village locations. By 1950, he was firmly established and is shown here standing proudly in front of his garage, also featured a forecourt of new and second-hand cars for sale, a rare and ambitious sight in a rural village at the time. He remained deeply rooted in the community throughout his life, passing away in 1973 at the age of 75. An evocative photograph generously shared by Jill Matthews offers a rare glimpse inside Gear's workshops. Pictured proudly beside the automobiles are four men whose names still resonate locally. From left to right, Bert Dancy, known for helping with petrol sales on the forecourt, alongside Vic Hunter, and Jill's father, Len Linthorne, a key figure in the team, and Dick Wallard, whose presence completed this portrait of Charmouth's motoring past. This 1985 view captures Gear's garage during the period when it was under the management of Peter Beecher. Shortly thereafter, the site changed hands, sold to George Burgess, who transformed it into the base for his engineering business, manufacturing stoves and heating appliances, complete with an on-site showroom. A decade later, in 1996, the site was sold once again. This time, its identity changed more profoundly with the construction of Queen's Walk. Built in 1525 by Thomas Chard, Abbot of Ford, the Queen's Arms stands as one of Charmouth's most enduring landmarks. Remarkably, it still retains many of its original Tudor features, offering a rare architectural link to the village's ecclesiastical past. For many years, the building served as a manse for the minister of the neighbouring chapel before changing hands in 1939 when it was purchased by Clifford Stapleforth. He converted it into a hotel, a role it would fulfil for decades before its more recent rebranding as the Abbot's House, aptly honouring the monastic origins. An evocative view of the dining room at the Queen's Arms in 1950 offers a glimpse into mid-century hospitality with one of Charmouth's oldest buildings. With its panelling, walls and traditional furnishings, the room would have welcomed both locals and visitors seeking hearty meals or an afternoon tea in historic surroundings. To mark the 300th anniversary of King Charles II's dramatic flight through Charmouth, the local Conservative Association of Charmouth and Wootton Fitzbane staged a spirited reenactment of his attempted escape in 1951. The event commemorated the monarch's brief but memorable stay in the village in 1651, when disguised and on the run after the Battle of Worcester, he sought passage to France from the Dorset coast. The reenactment brought history to life for residents and visitors alike, blending pageantry with local pride and Charmouth's brush with royal intrigue. On the 19th of February 1979, the serenity of Charmouth's historic centre was abruptly shattered when a trailer carrying boats veered off course and crashed into the Queen's Arms, now known as the Abbot's House. The vehicle came to rest at a striking right angle to the street, its cab embedded beneath one of the front windows. A recovery truck is seen here attempting the delicate task of removing the embedded trailer from the building. Fortunately, the crash affected only the 1940s extension, sparing the original Tudor era structure from serious harm. A photograph taken shortly after a car caught fire opposite the George on the 28th of August 1981 captures both an emergency moment and a rarely documented corner of Charmouth. The scene shows a fire engine attending the blaze, drawing attention not only to the incident but also to its architectural backdrop, including a distinctive large pointed sign that then hung over the street from the George Inn, a bold marker of the pub's present, now long vanished. In 1985, Millview was home to a seasonal shop offering swimwear, gifts and souvenirs. Since its closure, the building has returned to residential use. This photograph documents the widening of the bridge over the River Char in 1957. Originally built in 1822 to serve the new Turnpike Road connecting Charmouth with Bridport, the bridge was a vital link for trade and travel across the region. Over a century later, growing traffic demands prompted its expansion. In the backdrop of the image, the former mill building stands as quiet witness to the village's layered history. A tranquil view towards the street, showing the George, evokes a sense of timeless village calm. Dominating the centre is the tall gabled building that once housed Bernie Hansford's shop before its eventual demolition to improve access into Barney's Close. To the right stands Furlands, originally serving as a village drill hall. It was later repurposed as a telephone exchange. Eventually it became the home of Barney Hansford himself, where he established a local museum. A working moment in Chalmers' former telephone exchange, tucked behind Furlands. Seated at their desk are Joan Main, Sheila Stamp and Nan Matthews, three women integral to the daily communications of the village. Sheila, notably, was the daughter of Cecil Gear, brother of Billy Gear. Furlands itself carries its own evolving story. Once a drill hall, and later the telephone exchange, it was eventually purchased by Barney Hansford in a private sale from the Postmaster General for £3,250. Barney made it his home and created the Country Life exhibition at the rear. A charming snapshot of Stowe House harks back to its days as a welcoming tea room and boarding house. To the right stands Bow House, while just beyond was the original entrance to the car park for Barney Hansford's museum. That entrance has since vanished, making way for what is now Barney's Close. This 1980 photograph offers a fascinating glimpse into Barney Hansford's Fossil and Country Life exhibition. The entrance to the museum is clearly visible, inviting passers-by into a trove of local treasures from ammonites to agricultural tools. In 1968, Barney Hansford opened his fossil exhibition in the heart of Charmouth, later expanded it into the Country Life exhibition, a captivating blend of paleontology and rural heritage that reflected both the land and the life shaped by it. His passion and charm made him a familiar face, not just locally but nationally, as he was frequently interviewed on television and celebrated for his encyclopedic knowledge and engaging storytelling. Sadly, illness led to the closure of the exhibition in 1986 and its contents were auctioned off, yet his legacy lives in, not least in the naming of Barney's Close. A view of the George Inn in 1958 captures two refined ladies making their way past its entrance. At the time, the inn was operated by Arnold and Hancock, a brewery based in Wivelscombe, Somerset, known for managing a number of well-regarded public houses across the region. A snapshot from inside the George Inn in 1953 offers a warmly familiar scene. Locals George Rowland, Paul Sartin, the landlord, and Jack Bartlett gather around with pints in hand, enjoying good company in the heart of Charmouth. This lively 1983 snapshot outside the George Inn captures the Charmouth football team and their devoted supporters in full celebratory mood after a thrilling visit to a European match at Wembley. The journey itself became part of the story after the coach broke down beyond Southampton. What could have been a headache turned into a rolling party with plenty of beer flowing. On July the 6th, 1984, the Bridport News captured a moment that would blossom into a cherished friendship. Four Charmouth delegates, Mr. Colin Gibson, Mr. Mike Davis, Mr. Mike Lake, and his wife Di, set off for an unofficial visit to Arnay-sur-Mer, France, to explore the possibility of twinning the two communities. Pictured outside the Georgian before their departure, they were warmly received by their French hosts, including the mayor. This initial gesture laid the foundation for a thriving twinning group, which soon led to annual exchange visit filled with hospitality, shared culture, and enduring camaraderie. An evocative 1954 photograph captures George Restorick, Charmouth's well-regarded village butcher, proudly posed beside his delivery van outside the Georgian. Mr. and Mrs. Capewell are shown behind the bar at the Georgian, captures a warm and familiar scene from Charmouth's pub life at the turn of the millennium. This joyful 2002 scene outside the Georgian captures Charmouth villagers gathered to celebrate Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee, marking 50 years of her reign. At the heart of the festivities stood a spectacular Union Jack cake, a sweet centrepiece that symbolised national pride and local togetherness. A charming scene from 1954 highlights the bustling corner of Charmouth. On the left, the petrol pump on the forecourt of Lansdowne House marks one of two garages in operation, both under the enterprising stewardship of Billy Gear. Directly opposite stood his second garage. In the foreground, the ivy-clad facade of the Wander Inn draws the eye, its walls ice cream signage inviting passers-by into the cafe. The Wander Inn, once known as the New Inn, stood at one of Charmouth's oldest and most characterful buildings. After the Second World War, James and Dorothy Potter breathed new life into it, renaming it the Wander Inn and opening a cafe in the adjoining Swiss cottage. The cafe's popularity led them to expand into the rest of the building, creating a lively hub for locals and visitors alike. Over time, however, the property fell into decline, with its final residents being David Hoffler and his father. In 2003, the structure collapsed, bringing an end to its long and layered history. In its place, Red Bluff and Swiss Cottage were built. A view of Lansdowne House taken in 1979 shows it in rather forlorn condition during its time as a wine shop, a far cry from the earlier prominence. The building's fortunes shifted when Eric Dunford and Frank Smith established their estate agency there. Eventually, the business relocated to the premises later occupied by Farnwell, Smith and Banwell. The event of 31st of May 1978 remains etched in Charmouth's collective memory as one of the most harrowing days. Within the span of 10 minutes, two separate lorries, both suffering brake failure, hurtled down the street, threatening disaster. The first, a blue French lorry, crashed into the Wander Inn, drawing a crowd of stunned onlookers. Moments later, in the sweltering heat, a second red lorry lost control and followed the same perilous descent. It was only the swift and selfless action of local policeman Monty Harris, who ran ahead of the vehicle, shouting for people to clear the way, that averted tragedy. The second lorry ultimately crashed further down the road, damaging 4 cars en route. The photograph showing both vehicles, blue on the left, red at the bottom right, serve as a stark reminder of the day Charmouth Street nearly became the scene of a national disaster. This dramatic close-up captures the blue lorry at the moment of impact as it crashes into Lansdowne House, surrounded by stunned onlookers. The crash, part of the infamous double incident of 31st of May 1978, remains one of Charmouth's most talked about moments of near tragedy. A striking imaging showing the aftermath of the blue lorry's crash into Lansdowne House, its side wall demolished, the vehicle having continued its descent down the street. Now seen near the red lorry at the bottom of the hill, the scene captures the extraordinary moment when two separate brake failures occurred within minutes of each other. This close-up catches the red lorry in the aftermath of the second crash in 1978. A poignant image of PC Monty Harris inspecting the wreckage left by the runaway red lorry, with the vehicle looming in the background outside Primrose Cottage on the street. His calm presence amid the chaos in a quiet testament to the bravery he displayed earlier when he ran ahead of the lorry, warning villagers to clear the way and averting what could have been a devastating tragedy. An evocative view looking on the street on the 31st of May 1978 captures the immediate aftermath of Charmouth's most dramatic day. Emergency vehicles are seen attending the scene, their presence underscoring the gravity of the twin runaway lorry crashes that had just unfolded. A crowd of onlookers lines the road, some still visibly stunned, others drawn by the commotion, bearing witness to the chaos that narrowly avoided becoming a national tragedy. An uplifting 1982 scene captures a celebratory procession winding down the street in Charmouth, marking the end of the Falkland Wars. The mood is one of relief and pride as villagers come together to honour the return of peace and the efforts of British forces. In the background, Lansdowne House stands as a familiar landmark, then home to the estate agency run by Eric Dunford and Frank Smith. Beside it, the Wander Inn, operated as a restaurant, added a touch of hospitality to the day's festivities. The Devonedge Hotel rose from the ashes of a devastating fire in 1895 that swept through a cluster of buildings stretching to Bars Lane. Its construction marked a new chapter for the site, though its life as a hotel was far from straightforward, marked by changing fortunes and eventual conversion into apartments. A 1952 guide to Charmouth proudly advertised the comforts: sprung mattresses, bedside lights and gas fires in the bedrooms, modern luxuries for mid-century holidaymakers. The ground floor beginning as a bakery before transforming into a butcher's and later a hairdresser's. A dramatic incident in 1972 saw a cider lorry lose control on Charmouth's main street, narrowly missing a group of children before colliding with the rear of a bus and crashing into a parked van. The scene unfolded with terrifying speed, and it was sheer luck that the only casualty was William Beasley, who sustained cuts to his head and arms as the towering bus loomed above him outside the Devonedge gift shop. The van belonging to Morgan's newsagent was completely written off. This close-up captures the dramatic aftermath of the 1972 cider lorry crash in Charmouth. After narrowly missing a group of children, the lorry collided with the rear of a bus, which was then dragged into the window of the Devonedge Hotel. The bus was later removed, revealing the full extent of the damage. A proud moment of George Restrick outside his butcher shop. Originally from Axminster, George first set up near the Grange Garden opposite the George Inn before becoming one of the inaugural occupants of the newly built row of shops in 1934. A major development in the village. His business thrived there until the 1960s when Morgan's took over and expanded into child shop next door. That legacy endures today in the large DIY stock tucked away behind Morgan's. In 1983, Devonedge stood as a vibrant hub of village life in Charmouth. The building housed the post office, Charmouth Galleries, and Keith and Chris Grinter's high-class family butchers, known for quality cuts and personal service. This image from 1982 captures a moment of communal pride and relief in Charmouth as villagers line the street to watch a celebratory procession marking the end of the Falkland War. Morgan's, which by then had expanded into the former butcher shop next door, and Charmouth Galleries, which served as the village post office. That legacy is still visible today in the form of the red post box outside the building. This photograph captures the aftermath of a dramatic incident on the street in Charmouth in 1982, where several cars was shunted downhill and came to rest just above the junction of Bars Lane and Charmouth Lodge. The scene is framed by familiar village landmarks, Charles' hardware shop, Morgan's the newsagents, Charmouth galleries, and Grinter's the butchers. The clustering of damaged vehicles hints at the force of the event. A 1982 photograph captures a lively group of youngsters gathered outside Robinson's the Baker's, a familiar fixture on the corner of Bars Lane. Behind them stands the Limes, later known as Charmouth Lodge, a building steeped in quiet history. It was once home to the Whittington sisters, who ran a small private school in adjoining property known as Little Lodge. This view down Bars Lane captures Robinson's Bakery and Tea Room, nestled on the corner in 1982. Their adverts proudly declared a commitment to only the finest natural ingredients, with everything freshly baked on the premises. It was a promise that resonated with locals and visitors alike, offering not just food, but a sense of wholesome tradition. Village butcher Robert Huxter with his wife standing proudly inside their shop at Devon Edge in 1999. Their business occupied part of the ground floor of the building, continuing Charmouth's long tradition of family-run butchers offering personal service and quality produce. In the millennium year, Jeff and Pauline Adams were the familiar faces behind the counter at Morgan's, the village store that offered far more than just newspapers and essentials. Their presence added a personal touch to the shop's eclectic offerings, from beach goods and stationery to DIY supplies tucked away at the back. Arthur Banwell was a well-known figure in Charmouth's property scene, serving as the village estate agent. His name was closely associated with Fulton Smith and Banwell, a firm with presence across West Dorset and East Devon. This photograph captures a youthful Steve and Jill Pyle standing outside Charmouth's post office in 1999, then located at the corner of Bars Lane. Their presence marks a moment of continuity in the village's long postal tradition, one that stretched back over 2 centuries. Their stewardship carried the post office into the new millennium before its eventual closure in 2019. An evocative photograph showing a group of schoolchildren gathered outside the Limes, now known as Charmouth Lodge, once home to the remarkable Whittington sisters. The adjoining building, Little Lodge, housed their small private school, a quiet but influential institution in village life. The advert from the Charmouth Guide on the left offers a glimpse into the school's ethos and offerings, reflecting the sisters' dedication to education and community involvement. Their legacy extended beyond the classroom, with ties to the local tennis club. The Whittington sisters of Charmouth Lodge were a remarkable presence in village life. Formidable in character and deeply rooted in history, they ran a private school next door, a Little Lodge, shaping generations of local children with their distinctive approach to education. Their lineage traced directly back to William de Whittington of Warwickshire, who died in 1283, placing them within a noble ancestry that also included Sir Richard Whittington, better known as Dick Whittington, the legendary Lord Mayor of London. This scene captures the aftermath of a car shunt outside Little Lodge and Charmouth Lodge in 1982. Their vehicles, jostled and damaged, came to rest just above the junction with Bars Lane. This 1983 incident saw a Harding Sunshine Cruiser coach veer off course and crash into the gardens of Charmouth Lodge, then still known as the Limes. The impact drew a crowd of concerned villagers, many of whom gathered to witness the aftermath and offer help. Tucked behind Charmouth's doors, nicer, this unassuming house holds a colourful slice of village history. Once known as the Star Inn, it briefly adopted the name Drum and Monkey before closing. In May 1988, the landlord, having uncovered that the original name dated back to retired naval officers' tenure, restored the Drum and Monkey title with pride. The new inn sign, specially commissioned from a Yeovil artist, replaced the old star emblem and celebrated the naval heritage behind the name. The term Drum and Monkey itself harks back to maritime tradition, the drum used by Marines during marches, and the powder monkey, young boys who ferried gunpowder during battles. The first photograph offers a poignant wartime snapshot of Frank Turner, Vivian Hallett, and Alf Hallett, three familiar faces from Charmouth Fast. The second image shifts to a more convivial scene outside the Star Inn, where landlord Frank Bailey stands proudly with his signature pipe and bow tie. The Star Inn sign visible above the passageway between Little Lodge and Charmouth Store. Dampier is seen here with its classic village storefront, its windows stacked high with gleaming tins of fruit. Just beside it, the sign for the Star Inn hangs above the passageway between Little Lodge and the shop William John Dampier purchased the shop in 1918. It remains a family enterprise for generations. Donald took over in 1954, followed by Ronald in 1970, who ran it until 2000. With roots stretching back over 2 centuries, Dampier's stood proudly as one of the oldest grocers in the country, evolving with the times while retaining its village soul. This early photograph offers a warm glimpse into village life, with Donald Dampier standing proudly behind the original mahogany counter of his family shop. The shelves behind are stacked high with teas and canned fruit, symbols of post-war abundance. Donald had taken over the business from his father, William John Dampier, who bought the shop in 1918. A charming scene showing Donald Dampier tending to his outside display in front of the family shop, the bench on the left often occupied by locals catching up or resting with their shopping. Ron and Jean Dampier are seen here in 1999, standing proudly in front of the drinks display at Charmouth Stores, having taken over the shop from Ron's father Donald in 1986. They carried forward a family legacy that stretched back generations. The store's shelves, stocked with everything from groceries to beach goods, mirrored the evolving needs of locals and visitors alike. In 2005, the baton passed to the Tritton family, who have continued to run the business with the same spirit of service and adaptability that has defined Charmouth Stores for over 2 centuries.